Hey, what's up guys? Brian with another episode of BS Bassin', and today we're coming at you in the garage again. I got a 2017 Chevy Silverado 1500 here. Looks like it's really high right now, but honestly I already got it jacked up on jack stands, popped the wheels off, and getting ready to put a MotoFab leveling kit on this truck. Guy's got some nice aggressive tires on it, probably maybe 1 inch, maybe 2 inches oversized, and the wheel wells are definitely a little tight. So we're going to install this leveling kit, get that front wheel well a little bit more room, get that truck looking correct. You know, it's not going to be sitting slouching down in the front going down the highway, but anyways, 37 inches from center line of the wheel to the fender wheel well, and I'll let you know what the measurements are when we're done. Alright, so I'm going to try to show you everything that we're going to do here in one shot. We've got a sway bar link. It's right behind the caliper here. Let's see if we can see it. Right here. It's a 15 millimeter on top. I'm going to take a 15 millimeter wrench, hold it on top, use a 15 mil on my impact, go on the bottom. Now it's a little seized up, so we're going to have to heat that up probably and get that one off. But the next one would be a 21 millimeter on our tie rod end. Once that's off, we'll just screw it on a little. We're going to hit our knuckle right here to loosen that up. Then we have a couple 10 millimeter lines up on top that are holding our ABS wires, our wheel speed sensors. We're going to pop these off. This gives us a little bit more room to work up here. Alright, so I got the sway bar link off over here with a little bit of heat on the nut, and then a 15 millimeter on the bottom and a 15 millimeter ratcheting on the top, and I got it off by hand. The impact didn't seem like it liked it. So now our next step is we're going to loosen up our upper ball joint nut. You're going to need an 18 millimeter ratcheting. You could do it with a box end, but it's going to take a lot more time because you can't get a ratchet in there, like a standard, like a 3/8 or 1/2 inch ratchet in there. So once you break that loose, I want to get this all the way off and then put it on about a thread or two, and we're going to break that ball joint loose. And what I'll do is I'll hit the knuckle right here. There we go. The ball joint broke loose. I'm going to use my legs, support it, push down on the upper control arm a little bit, just to get that nut to come loose. And there we go. Upper control arm to spindle or knuckle is off. We'll put our nut back on there a little loose so we don't damage any threads in the next step. Now we're going to use a 15 millimeter, and we're going to, from the bottom, we're going to remove the 2 screws or 2 bolts holding in the lower part of the strut mount. Our next step is the 3 bolts holding the top of the strut to the strut tower. There's a little bit of wiring up there, so what we're going to end up having to do is push the wiring off of those bolts and then use an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench or an 18 millimeter socket on like a 3/8 ratchet to pop those out. One thing is, I don't go under the hood to do this. I have plenty of room to do it here. I may push the fender liner up a little bit to get a little extra room, but there's no reason to go to the top of the vehicle to do this. I'm just going to support the strut from the bottom and remove the top 2 nuts that I left loose. The next step, I'll show you how to mount the spacer to the strut, and then I'll reassemble one side for your ability to take it apart and put it back together. These struts have quite a bit of room to get out with all that taken apart. Just slide it down and out. Alright, so here's our spacer. What we have to do is on the threaded side right there, you see the silver part where it's machined, we're going to drop the supplied nuts, and you see I put Loctite on them. I put Loctite on them all. We'll get them started. These are an 8mm hex head screw, so we'll get those 3 started. This brand MotoFab here, honestly, it's my favorite brand. I've never had a fitment issue with any of their products, so that's why I do recommend them when someone says, hey, I want to lift. So I actually got an impact for it. I'm going to get them for both of my spacers at the same time so I'm not going back and forth. Now this spacer itself is solid aluminum. The one thing you got to be careful with is don't over tighten these. So I'm using a little impact here. I'm confident with the way I use my impact, so I'm okay with that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use a 17mm 3/8 impact nut. And we got 3 for each side, nylon lock nuts. I'm going to take my strut here. Take one of my spacers. Spacers only go on one way, so you can't really mess that up. That's on. Now what I'll do is I'll actually use my socket to start these before I end up using the impact on them. And what we're going to do is use the factory mounting hardware on the top. So we reuse the factory hardware for the studs that actually go through the upper strut mount. And we use these. Spacers mounted to the top of our strut. When we put this in, it's actually going to go in a little backwards now. So I took the clips off the bottom here, and what we're going to do is thread the bolts through and then put the clips on and let the clips tighten down over the bottom of the strut itself. And you can see this is 2017. This is what Chicago weather does to a vehicle. This will only go in one way. Push it up there. I'm just going to get those 3 top bolts started. I know you can't see this, but once I get 1 or 2 pretty close, I leave them loose so I could still wiggle the bottom of the strut to get those bottom holes aligned. But these Chevys have a lot of room to get things in there. I don't know if this is a 2-inch or 2.5-inch lift for the front, but I got plenty of room, and it looks like it may be the 2.5-inch level. Didn't actually ask the customer because to me it really doesn't matter. So with that there, we're going to jack the spindle up a little, or the lower control arm up a little, to get that to line up a little more with the lower strut. And this isn't tight, guys. I know it looks kind of snug, but it's not. Once we get this somewhat lined up, I'm going to grab our lower strut mount bolts. These were the ones with the 15mm head on them. I just want to get them through. If I get just one of them through, I'll be alright. So get that there. Use a pry bar. Persuade the strut into position where the bolt will. Sorry guys, my camera died there. Got this one down, so you'll see the bolt is through right here. Can you see that or no? Yeah. Alright, so then I put that nut on the top. I don't like to go all the way through, but we'll bring this down again. I get this space, this nut that gets locked on there. I don't know if you can see that. Down by the strut mount. It's wiggling there. I'm going to hold it from spinning a little bit. Once that bolt's started, I've got to bring it down a little bit more. That's not threaded, so we could just tap that down. There. Now it won't spin. There, so both are tight now. Just had to hold them. Now we're going to tighten up the nuts up on top. 18mm ratcheting wrench again. On top. So hang on to that 18mm wrench, because our next step, we're going to spin this spindle over, articulate it over, watch your brake lines and everything so they don't get hung up, and we got to get this ball joint into the spindle. So to do this, we're going to take that ball joint nut off, but keep it close. I use a couple pry bars here. I'll show you how. I use my first pry bar on the spring, just get that down. I'm going to hold it with this one. Look, now maybe get there. Grab that lower spring with the larger pry bar. I'll just push this up my feet. So I want you guys to be able to do this in the garage at home without a lift, without help. I'll push that ball joint down in there. Watch your brake lines. I'm going to take that ball joint nut, start threading it on. Once that's on pretty good, you can release this. Now, again, watching for your brake lines. What I got to do, get underneath the bottom coil so that I can put that final torsion on that ball joint and get it tight. Now we just got to get this tightened up. There. Now it's gonna work. Look at that. When I push right there, it's really giving me the power to push that ball joint down. And keep that ball joint in the spindle. I got bigger pry bars too if this doesn't work, but keep that ball joint in the spindle while tighten it up. Make sure that ball joint's nice and tight. Don't want any issues. So there we go. Ball joint's nice and tight. We didn't pull out any brake lines. I'll actually now get these brake lines fastened to the upper control arm and the spindle. Get them started, and then we'll finish with something faster. Those are fastened now. Spin this over, take our tie rod nut off. We can relieve the pressure on the control arm because my jack is keeping the spindle from getting into place. Alright, that started now. I have to finish the other side before I could put the sway bar link on, and then I'll tighten everything up. So we'll get back to you at that point. Alright guys, so here's a better view of those sway bar links that were being a little pesky. Now that we're going back together, I got the other side all lined up. We're going to slide this through, put our little bushing on, and now we're going to use a pry bar to pry the sway bar itself down. Get that nut started up on the top. There. Now we just got to tighten them up. I got the ratcheting wrench for the top, the regular 15 for the bottom. This side here was just a little pesky coming off because it was rusted, but we're getting it all lined back up and everything's going together right. Just took a little heat. And I don't like using impacts on the sway bar links when I go back together because it's rubber bushings. Perfect. That's all good. And I'll show you that tie rod end link that we didn't tighten up yet. Well, hey guys, Brian with BS Fasten here again, wrapping this up with you. After actually putting the leveling kit on this truck in the front, it's a rough country lift. I'll ask the customer if it was 2.5 inches, and I'll keep it in the comments below. I believe it's 2.5 inch or 3 inch leveling kit for the maybe 2007 and up or 2009 and up GMC and Chevy 1500 trucks. But I'm actually measuring 41 inches to the center of the wheel well from the center of the wheel all the way up. Before lifting this truck, we only had 37, so that's an improvement of 4 inches. Sure, it's going to settle out a little bit. I got to take it for a quick test drive, but that's a lot of lift for 2 hours of work and $60 in parts, maybe $80 in parts. But if you guys haven't already, hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. And I'm not sponsored or promoted or anything by motofablifts.com, but check them out if you want to lift. They are fantastic. There you go guys, this is the actual kit that we installed today.